So we saw the changes that occur in the fetus once they're born. Now let's look at some changes that occur in the mother after she gives birth. One of the changes that new mothers often notice is hair loss. They take a shower, they wash their hair, they see all this hair in the drain. They also may notice that there's a lot of hair coming out when they brush their hair. It is true that there is a lot of hair loss after pregnancy, but you're just going back to normal. So if you recall back to chapter 6, there is a cycle of your hair. A hair will spend about 2 to 5 years growing. Then it will spend a few months dormant. Then you have about 100 per day fall out, and then you repeat the cycle. A new one starts growing in its place. During pregnancy, the hormones stop the going dormant and falling out. So while a woman is pregnant, she does not lose 100 hairs per day. So a lot of women notice that their hair gets longer and thicker during pregnancy. And most people attribute this to the vitamins, but it is not prenatal vitamins. This is due to the pregnancy hormones. So then, after you give birth, you lose those hormones. And those 100 hairs a day that haven't been falling out for the last 9 months now all fall out. So you lose 9 months of hair all at the same time. So that's why it may seem like you're going bald. 100 hairs a day times the last 9 months all of a sudden comes out. But really, you're just going back to normal. Another thing that happens is a lot of fluid loss. So during pregnancy, you tend to retain fluid. You can see this like in the swollen ankles and legs. There is greater blood volume. So women who are pregnant have more blood than when they're not pregnant. But then again, after pregnancy, you have to get rid of this extra fluid. And the body has several ways of doing this. You will sweat more. You will urinate more. There is also lochia. This is blood loss. It is like a heavy period. And it will last anywhere from a few weeks to a couple months. And that's a lot of excess blood leaving the body through the uterus. And a third thing that has to change is the size of the uterus. So during pregnancy, the uterus grew very large to hold that fetus. Now it has to shrink back to its normal size. And it does this through contractions. And these contractions can be painful. And they're called after pains. Everyone has a different experience, but some women say that the after pains hurt as bad as the labor pains. Another thing that happens while you're in the hospital is the nurses do a uterus massage. So it sounds like a nice thing when a nurse comes in and says, "I'm here to give you your massage." It is not a nice thing. They knead the uterus very forcefully, and it's very painful. And they're trying to get the blood and whatever remains pushed out of there and help it shrink back down. Then after birth, the mother also will start making milk. So milk production doesn't start until a few days after the baby is born. So the first few days, the baby gets colostrum. This is a thick yellow liquid. And it is full of antibodies. And so it is the first protection that that baby has against infection. So it's this big boost to the immune system to help protect that newborn from getting sick. And this colostrum is so important to the immune system that a lot of times, even if a mother is not planning on breastfeeding, they will encourage her to still do it for the first couple of days just to get that colostrum. Then after a few days, the milk comes in. This is maintained through a positive feedback cycle. So the more you nurse, the more milk you make. And this, like labor, involves the hypothalamus and the pituitary. So we're going to start here. When the baby nurses, the nipple sends signals to the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus stimulates both the anterior and posterior pituitaries. The anterior pituitary will secrete prolactin, and the posterior pituitary will secrete oxytocin. Prolactin stimulates milk production. So prolactin will come to the mammary glands and stimulate them to make milk. Now, they're not making milk and the baby's immediately drinking that milk. What it's doing is it replaces the milk that the baby is drinking at that time. So when a baby starts nursing, the breast is full of milk, and the baby drinks that milk that's already there. But then, however much milk the baby takes, the prolactin stimulates the replacement of it. Oxytocin causes milk letdown. This is when the milk is released from the breast. So without oxytocin, the baby wouldn't be able to get the milk that's in there. And other factors can stimulate this oxytocin. Every woman is different, but some women, just the hearing, seeing, or smelling their baby can cause the oxytocin and milk letdown. So as long as the baby keeps nursing, you keep having prolactin to make new milk, and the cycle continues. It's once the baby stops nursing, then you stop having prolactin and you stop making milk. Another interesting thing about the prolactin is it can serve as a birth control. Prolactin inhibits the menstrual cycle. Now, in our modern society, this doesn't always work. It only works if you maintain constant high levels of prolactin. So, in past times and in other cultures, when you would have women would basically wear their babies, they would strap them onto their body, and the baby was always with the mother. And the baby would just nurse pretty much continually. It wasn't like every 2 hours, sit down, feed them for 20 minutes. It was just the baby would nurse for a couple of minutes, stop for a couple of minutes, nurse for a couple of minutes, stop. So the baby just nurses off and on all day, and the key is all night. It has to be 24 hours. Under those conditions, like the way it was for much of human history and the way it still is in some cultures, the baby is right there, strapped to the mom, nurses off and on 24/7 whenever they want. And that will maintain those prolactin levels, and that woman will not have a menstrual cycle and cannot get pregnant while she's still nursing that baby. But in our modern culture, this doesn't work because we have more of a program of you feed a baby once every 2 hours and you put them down in between times, and that's not enough to keep the mom's prolactin level steady enough to inhibit the menstrual cycle. So there's some things that change with the mom after she's done being pregnant and gives birth.